let me throw this on the table because Case and Allison, he's in the middle of a trial and he stabbed another student 5 times in the boys' bathroom in the high school because he felt he was like, he felt like he was going to get jumped and he didn't, and the students taking a stand saying, well, he didn't want to fight. So apparently he didn't get jumped by 5 guys, even though I guess 5 guys came into the bathroom. It was just one guy, but he pulled out a knife and stabbed the one guy 5 times and he died. So he's on trial now.
Same kind of thing.
Same thing.
Same thing. And that's a white guy on trial.
Yeah.
And like I'm saying, there's probably a couple of thousand of these cases pending right now in the United States of America. But it is just absolutely disgusting that this piss poor crew of journalists, and I use the term loosely, have decided to highlight this for ratings.
Yeah. I mean, listen, do I get ratings talking about this? Yeah, but I really want to be objective and not sensationalism. And I've said that this is not about race. It's not. What it is about is teens gone wild, teens that don't understand consequences, teens that think they're entitled. They don't understand conflict resolution. This is a national problem because it was another guy and he had a court hearing, I believe was earlier today, and I forgot his name. Black guy went to his school and shot 5 people. So might as well say a mass shooter, because he felt as though, well, I had to get them before they got me. And apparently it was over a dice game. But these are all teenagers. And it just so happened that was an all black school. So I don't care. It's something going on with the youth and all the adults in the room are failing the kids. So, yeah.
They're getting taught to be emotional. 57 years ago, I heard it all the time on UCLA's campus. Men need to learn to express themselves. They need to be able to emote, to cry, to shout, to let it all hang out and be like the women, man, so they can be emotional. It's okay to be emotional. So everybody wanted to convert the boys to being raised as emotional creatures like they were girls. And it does not work when you take the apex predator on the planet Earth, the most dangerous thing that has ever walked the continents, and you tell him it's all right to give in to his emotions. That's crazy. Even the Vikings drew a line. You've heard of Leif Erikson and Eric the Red. They settled Iceland. They discovered Iceland and Greenland. And looks like one of them, Leif Erikson, he got to the North America 400 years before Christopher Columbus. But you know why they called...
I want to move on.
No, but I mean, I'm just talking about all cultures. Eric the Red was looked at, get this, by the Vikings as a dangerous homicidal maniac. And they banned him from Scandinavia, said, you gotta go. You are too dangerous.
What does that have to do with?
In other words, it's an emotional thing. He was known as a berserker, and his son, Leif Erikson, was known as a violent person who was so violent that he even scared his own father with his propensity for violence. And the father had been banned from Scandinavia from being too violent.
Let's swing it back.
In other words, societies have a thing where they say enough is enough. This has gotten out of hand. So I
want to read the super chat here. Thank you, Freedmen's Network. He said, so if that's the case, Judge, why did Daniel Penny walk scot-free?
Daniel Penny, you're talking about in New York? Because they had some whacked out crazy fool that was a threat, actual threat, who had a long rap sheet of physical violence against innocent people. And he was acting out. He was mentally ill. And this person, Penny, acted like a man. He protected the people in the car that he was in, the subway unit, and he applied a chokehold. He held it too long, and the guy passed away from oxygen privation when you compress the carotid arteries and you can't get full
Nobody,
flow.
he didn't have to press that.
Because under the circumstances, the jury in question said it was reasonable. See, it's defense of third parties as well as self-defense. They're the same. In other words, you can defend yourself, self-defense, or you can defend third parties. So under the circumstances, the jury said this character that he used non-weapon, non-deadly force on, unfortunately died, but under the circumstances, it was justified. And if you don't get the difference, then you need to go back and do some personal reassessment. There is this thing about people, individual citizens in our country have a obligation to contribute to public peace, dignity, and order. And when somebody's out of line, it's the obligation of the observing citizens to keep things in line. I know everybody says, I want to take my cell phone and video this so I can get on TikTok and get some likes, but that's not the way it goes. You're supposed to contribute to the public peace, dignity, and order. And what Penny did, he didn't stab him. He didn't hit him with a club. He didn't shoot him. He choked him out.
Well, he tried to
Subdue him.
subdue him, but he subdued him to death.
Well, that was well.
I just think that was I just think it was excessive.
I defended cases like that. And what the general thing is, and all of my clients I defended with those, they got acquitted. And the deal is that you say he applied he did not use a deadly weapon. He used his hands, arms, legs, or feet, or whatever. And under the circumstances, his response to the circumstance, well, his response to what the deceased was doing was reasonable. This person was indicating that he was crazy. And see, when somebody's acting crazy, because it's supposed to be a common experience, unlike most other stuff, but quite like when somebody says he looked drunk to me. Humans have such an experience with either being drunk or observing a drunk that they're fully qualified to state an opinion. So Penny says he looked like he was going to attack somebody, and other people said he looked like he was going to attack somebody. He was threatening people, so Penny restrained him.
No, I don't have a problem. Yeah, you know what? I don't have a problem with that. And Joseph Camp in the chat says, Dana, would you want him to defend you if you were in danger? Yeah, you can defend me. Yes, I will want that. Only thing I'm saying is, for so long, people in New York subways, yes, we were used to the crazies. But apparently somebody told me when I held the X space last night, and she lives in New York, grew up in New York. She said it was a week prior to that incident with Daniel Penny. Someone came on a train, and a mentally challenged person came on a train and was yelling, oh, I'm gonna kill you, and just threatening people, being erratic, right? And people thought, okay, it's another nut job on the train. But this person actually had a weapon. I don't know if it was a gun or a knife, right? So that person, I think they were able to, I guess, subdue them, or the cops came or whatever. So when this incident, no, I heard that they actually shot people in the train. And either it was a week or maybe a month, but it was recent. So they actually harms people on the train. So let's just say, and then a week later, the Daniel Penny incident with Jordan Neely, I guess Daniel Penny was like, I'm not trying to get caught up with another crazy person that actually has a weapon and is going to use it. So let me subdue him. And I think the question was, did he intentionally try to kill him? Maybe not. Apparently he said no. But I'm just saying, yes, I want you to defend me. But he was a trained Marine. And I'm just like, well, damn, didn't you know how to subdue him without?
No, they don't necessarily know how to do that.
But yeah.
Because it's like you can train somebody. Let me tell you I've taken martial arts for 60 years. When there's a miscarriage or trying to chokehold, what happens is this. You're instructed to either out loud or to yourself count to 15. 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. And what happens is when you get to 15, release your hold, because then you start doing brain damage. If you cut it off completely, I can do it on somebody with thumb and forefinger if you get it on the carotid. And in 10 seconds, you're going to lose your vision. And in 15, you'll faint. If I hold it on longer than that, I start risking you suffering brain damage. So what happens is in the heat of the moment, Marine or otherwise, what goes on is people start forgetting to count and say, oh, well, and then they let go and then the person starts reviving and starts struggling again. See, what the purpose of this, from what he presented, meaning Penny at the trial, was he was attempting to subdue this guy to keep him from doing harm to other people. Now, in the self-defense situation, it can be escalated even if the guy does not have a weapon.
Mhm.
And you think he does, because a lot of states, well, not all places, but some states like Tennessee says you still have the self-defense even if you are mistaken about the circumstances, so long as it's an honest mistake. But this kid did not say, I thought he had a deadly weapon. He did not say, I thought he had a knife too. He did not say, I thought he had a gun. He said, I defended myself, and he stabbed him. See, that's why you need to remember you have a Fifth Amendment right to be free from self incrimination. Keep your mouth shut. And he didn't go too far. But you see, under the circumstances, their thing was they're trying to deal with justification. If the guy was found to have a knife on him, a gun on him, okay, fine, he's on square one. If he says, I thought he had a knife, or what he was acting like was that he was armed, or what he was acting like was this, and I think my response was reasonable to the circumstance, fine. But it's still best to shut your mouth and let the police try to build their case. And you got charged. And sometimes there's no way to talk your way out of the whole thing. You wait till trial and let your lawyer craft the defense of self-defense, and then go ahead without putting yourself in a real live mess.
Well, just real quick, I want to say this about the Daniel Penny, because two people I know that are in a law enforcement industry, right, especially security. They said that Daniel Penny, they agree with the actions of Daniel Penny because, you know, listen, Marine, that is your job to defend, but they were like, being in security, and if you say something, that is cause for someone to step in self-defense.
Yeah, it is.
So it's so he was like, and then he was like, what I do for a living, even if somebody say I'm going to do it, whether they do it or not, I have the right to step in and I'm going to subdue that person. And you don't, and he did say, you don't do it with
He doesn't have the right, he has the justification.
justification, right? Well, this person, he's actually law enforcement, but even if he wasn't, but what he was basically saying, the whole premise of self-defense and security and in securing the premises or defending other people, when somebody even verbally says this, they're going to do something, then you are, like you said, justified to defend.
Let me explain something else too. This is very important. The cop has exactly the same rights of self-defense that a citizen does. A citizen has exactly the same rights of self-defense as the cop. But what happens is there is this other part of this. The same aspects apply to defending a third party. And the police have a bigger burden when it comes to defending third parties. In other words, it's not just what happens right there when a person has given the indication that he or she is going to be extremely violent or pose a threat to somebody's life. It's what happens if they leave with that same state of mind, with that same possible armed situation. That cop has an obligation to protect remote third parties. outside of those that are just standing right there in front of everybody.
Okay.
You get the difference?
No, I do.